Now, the Ka-Bar Marine Fighting Knife is one of the most iconic fixed blades of all time. And the knife I have right here is not just a tribute, but a complete redesign of that iconic model. This is the Ka-Bar Slabby, and it was rebuilt from the ground up to be more capable and more well-rounded than its original brother. But as soon as I began to use this tool, I realized there were two immediate upgrades that needed to happen in order to get the most out of the design. And when I began to look at it compared to other Ka-Bars, like the BECKER BK7, the Spartan design but Ka-Bar made, HARSEY Fighter, and some other variants of the already familiar Ka-Bar Marine Fighting Knife, I began to realize that there may be some other hangups just in the overall redesign that may not make total sense. And so, in today's video, we're gonna put this to the test, run it up against those competitive options, and really see what the capabilities and limitations of the Ka-Bar Slabby are. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I'm Aaron. This is Gideonstactical. Let's dive in and have some fun. Now first, let's talk about the two things that you're gonna have to upgrade immediately, straight away, when you pick up a Slabby. And it is a real big detractor for me that they don't come like this out of the box, which means that you then have to spend more time, more money to get this knife running, honestly, the way it should have from the get-go. The first has to do with the sheath. Now you do get a good polymer pancake design sheath with lots of lashing points, good tension. We'll talk about deployment in a second, but this is how it comes to you. And this is now the second Ka-Bar that has been recently released with no belt attachments, zero. This is how it comes to you, and now you have to go spend extra money to figure out a way to lash this to your belt, your LBE system, or your gear. That's unacceptable in my opinion, especially when Ka-Bar, when they partnered with Spartan Blades and made their design for them, have an excellent belt webbing attachment comes standard on the HARSEY Fighter. We know all of these belt attachments that come on many of the other Ka-Bar fighting knife designs. Honestly, even if they did something like Molly locks, very inexpensive to do, just to give you something to lash onto, and then you can customize it. Ka-Bar wants you to do is spend 40 bucks on their new belt attachment design. Yeah, I just discovered this, that they're making this new belt attachment. That's extra. That's $40 currently. That attaches to the Cool Name, which was the first knife I saw with no belt attachment, and now this Slabby. So I feel very nickel and dimed when I bought this blade that I have to do that in order to get it to attach to a belt. But leave a comment because I want to hear from you guys. Am I being unreasonable, or is that a big downer for you as well? And since we're on the topic of the sheath, let's talk about the deployment. Now, it's got a little bit of rattle, but it's solid. It's definitely locked into place. In fact, it's a little too locked into place. What they have done is put a thumb release right here on the thumb ramp. So that is similar to the Ka-Bar HARSEY Fighter that we first saw this on. So that means that with a thumb push, it's very easy to deploy, but it really locks it into place otherwise. That's totally fine if you're releasing it in a standard hammer grip. If you are carrying this in a roll where you want to be able to have quick access and pull out this way, you are not going to be able to do that because your release is over here. So it is a single deployment in this fashion action. Not the end of the world, but it's something to be aware of. Now, if this sheath was identical to that, it wouldn't be a big deal. I'd just be informing you, hey, there's only one way to deploy it. But for some reason, Ka-Bar has decided to put an extra safety pin on the lock. So you see this little push button right here. So when it's in one location, boom, I can push, pull, deploy the blade. But if I push it, now it's locked and I cannot deploy the blade. So it is ultra secure in there. The problem is that almost every time I have put this in my pack and gone out and carried it and used it throughout my testing, this little tab gets accidentally bumped into the lock position, and then when I want to use it, I have to push, pull. And so in a high stress scenario, this could actually be a major detractor of deployment, and you're fighting with this thing to try and loosen up. So honestly, I just don't, from guts to butts, I do not like this sheath. And honestly, you either have an option of having to go straight up custom and get a custom Kydex, or your alternative would be to buy a leather Ka-Bar fighting knife sheath. Those are about 20, 25 bucks on average. You get the 7-inch version. It should fit this. I've seen some videos from Ka-Bar where it should, and it's probably the best, most inexpensive option to get a decently running sheath. And honestly, they probably should have just shipped the knife with that instead. Now I've decided, instead of dogging on the design back to back, let's look at some good aspects in this redesign. And the first and foremost has to do with the front end, the business end, the blade. Because we're still getting that 7 inches and kind of a similar profile, but if you look a little closer, there are several aspects that they've changed, I think overall for the better. First is that they have brought this saber or flat grind up a little bit to 3/4 of an inch height from edge to where the transition is. On the original, you had it more closer to a 1/2 inch, is like 5/8 of an inch from edge to where the transition is. That means that it has a little higher geometry and should be a little bit slicier and give a little bit less resistance when you are cutting. And as I stated a little earlier, they have made it thicker at 0.187 according to my caliper, where the original is 0.167. So they've thickened up the stock a little bit, heightened the grind, and then finally changed the geometry of that tip slightly. All lend itself to be an overall more functional tool, not only in the outdoors when you're carving, when you're batoning and splitting wood, but also when you are even piercing. It's going to, I think, actually give you a better overall geometry for a straight pierce. Now the knife is still made right here in the USA out of Ka-Bar's 1095 Crovan steel. Now the astute knife lover already knows that these handle scales did not come with this knife, and that has to do with our second thing that really needs to be upgraded almost immediately, but also how the ergonomics flow into weight, balance, and ultimately I think are either going to make or break the design for many of you, and we're going to get to that in just a second. But before we do that, I want to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of today's video, which is VAER watches. I've been sporting their field watches for over a year now, and they just keep on ticking. And what's really cool is they've just released a new size in their introductory S series of tactical field watches. For a while now, they've offered a 36mm retro size and a 40mm, but they just recently released a 42mm size in their S5 tactical field watch, which is perfect for larger individuals like myself. I'm 6'2", a little over 200 pounds, and just fits perfectly, sized right. And on top of that, you're gonna get Japanese movement, you get scratch resistant sapphire crystal over that face, you get the retro iconic styles from years gone by, and you're able to have other options that it comes standard with, including like a screw down lockout crown, meaning that it is gonna be water resistant down to 100 meters, and you get their quick change wristbands, so you can go from rubber to leather, or you can just run a standard 20mm NATO band on it if you wish. So I'll have a link popping up. It's in the description box below. I invite you guys to check it out and all that they got going on over there, and stay on time for all of your adventures. Okay, to handle and ergonomics. Now, they've given us that full tang construction with skeletonized cutouts. That's never a problem for me. I know some people are like, oh, it's gotta be, oh, that's a big problem. I've tested probably 800 fixed blades. I've never had one break inside the handle here when they're skeletonized, ever. Ever, if they're handle scales underneath, never broken. Tips break, you know, bad heat treats else in other places, but never under a handle scale. It just helps with balance, and it's not an issue. Okay, so we get that, awesome. You know, and absolutely is going to be more durable. You know, this is nowhere going to be as durable as this in construction. Okay, great. And then they shrunk the guard and followed suit with what we know from the Ka-Bar D2 Extreme. They kind of copied that design with the handle. Right, so something that's familiar. They've scalloped and rounded the top bottom guard. That feels great. And because there's no guard to fight over, the design is much better for, you know, non-combative use. Definitely better design for that. So that's all good, no problem. I believe that, I don't know how they're seating the butt cap and the guard because they slide on. I don't know if that's like pins or what they're doing with that. Now, the handles scales that come with are GRN Slick Black. Ugh, in 2026, why are we still doing this, Ka-Bar? Why? Why? So think of a BECKER, a standard BECKER. That's how it's going to be, straight from the factory. And I don't know why they did that. At minimum, why didn't you do GRN and then do like the iconic ribs that we know from all of the different models? That would have given us at least something to grab onto, maybe give it a little bit of texture, because I know they can. They've done it on the HARSEY. You know, do something to give us just a little bit to grab onto. Been great. They're slick. they're a non-starter for me. I didn't even want to use the knife that way, so I immediately sent it over to Lucas Carroll, one of the best custom handle makers around. He saw the need for this and immediately started making handle scales for this, and G10, micarta, all different options. I got 2 sets, and it immediately brought new life to the design. So that's what these are. These are micarta. Now they're ribbed, they're textured, excellent. They bolt right on, ready to rock and roll. Started about $55, go up to $65 depending on color combinations and material. I do have a 15% off promo code. I'll have all that linked in the description box below. You guys can check that out if you want. But that's basically a must. It absolutely makes the experience 1,000 times better when you put these handle scales on. Now, to be aware, because there's not perfect symmetry with every guard and stuff, like you might find tiny little gaps here and there. The scales are perfectly ground, but the guard is not perfectly set. There might be like a minute little tiny gap or something. Now, they don't move, they don't shift, they're locked in. Just be aware of that. It has to do with the fit and finish of the knife, not the fit and finish of the handle scales, if that makes sense. So that breathes new life into it. Okay, now based off of that, ergonomically, fills out the hand, feels great. Something to note, balance. The balance point is back here by this first bolt. So it is handle heavy, and it's just straight up heavy. So that's the balance point right there. This thing is 14 ounces, and when you compare that to about 10 ounces for a standard Ka-Bar fighting knife, that's a significant weight increase. And then you add to that this butt cap design that has a major problem if you are going to do any sort of delimbing, hacking, or chopping. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Woo! Okay, it's not going anywhere, but man, that's sending a lot of shock into my finger. I was holding it like that right there. So, I mean, that's how I was doing it. So it's not going to go anywhere. You don't even need the lanyard hole, even though it's nice that it has it. But man, my ring finger is tingling right now because of that shock. Now, I know I'm going to get people saying, oh, you shouldn't be hacking and chopping on a knife ever. Okay, but we do. We do. It does happen, and I'm sure that they designed it this way to help accentuate theoretically that. So yes, it will keep you in place, but honestly, the shock points, it has a lanyard hold, all that. As we button this up, where do I sit with this knife? How does it compare to some other Ka-Bars? Just value, all that. Now, I bought it on a sale when it first came out. I found it, I can't even remember what I paid for it. It was like, I don't know, $150, something like that. Right now, the best price I could find was about $170 to $175. That's like the best price when available. It's currently out of stock because they sold out. When I'm making this video, they sold out real fast, myself included. I mean, I was like, maybe this is exactly what we've been looking for. And I'm sure they'll come back into stock, or whatever. So $170, but we have to then spend extra money. Let's just say $15, for a blade Tek-Lok minimum. Easy math, let's just say now we're looking at $190 with tax and stuff, at minimum $190. And then if we're going to upgrade the handle scales, which I think is necessary, you're looking at like $240, dude. You're looking at $240 for a 1095 Ka-Bar blade. And I just think that there are better options, especially when there's the HARSEY Ka-Bar fighter. And this is like $150. $150, 0 upgrades needed. Obviously, you can do whatever you want. I mean, like, this is almost $100 cheaper than this knife right here. And a BECKER BK7, going to have more front heavy. It's actually even like an ounce lighter. And it's going to be about the same cost if I completely trick it out. And it has a higher grind. I mean, so guys, I don't know where that fits. It's not going to be in my regular rotation. If I want a fighting knife, I'm going with the standard Ka-Bar. If I want something kind of in between, I'm going to go with that HARSEY. And if I want like more like straight up woods, I'm going to go with the BECKER. So it's this weird mix, and then I have to invest so much extra money into it. In 2026, that shouldn't be happening. And I want them to succeed, but I feel like they're making some decisions right now that are leaving me scratching my head and making me go like, I don't get it. But maybe I'm totally missing it. I want to know what you guys think about the Slabby, especially if you own one. How has it been performing for you? Have you been seeing some of these things that I've seen? Or are you totally in love? I might be totally missing it, and it's a banger, but for me, it just makes sense to go with something else that Ka-Bar makes, and it doesn't really fit a hole for me. So that's me and my mileage. Hope it's been fun, entertaining, giving you the data you need on whether or not the Slabby makes sense for you. Leave comments, questions. Appreciate your time. Till next time, always remember to stay equipped, stay prepared. I'll see you out there.